Cabal. Getting this out of the way ahead of time, I'll openly admit I am trash with Cabal playing Mortal Kombat. He is not my ideal character to play with in the game. Outside of maybe Mortal Kombat Armageddon and the 3D era games are somewhat simple to play, I'm not good with Cabal in really any Mortal Kombat game. But that being said, I've always found him to be one of the cooler looking characters in any Mortal Kombat game, and also having one of the coolest looking movesets. Watching actual real Cabal players that know what they're doing is fascinating to watch. Hell, probably on the screen right now it looks like his crazy gameplay going on. But it's an absolute nightmare to play against, especially anybody who's ever played against Cabal in the towers in Mortal Kombat 3 or UMK3. It is ridiculous fighting against Cabal. But that being said, I'll go out on a limb and say that Cabal is probably one of the more popular Black Dragon characters in Mortal Kombat. I'd say he's probably second to Kano, and that's only just because Kano's been in Mortal Kombat for so long, and he's been in so many games. I think people are just, I don't know, I personally don't understand what the fascination is with Kano in Mortal Kombat is. I like Cabal more, but Kano I just feel like has a larger fan base than Cabal for whatever reason. Whatever. But I do think that Cabal is way cooler. I feel like he's the coolest, the single coolest member of the Black Dragon clan, especially when comparing him to like Cobra and Kira. I've already talked about my thoughts on Cobra in the previous redesign video that I did recently, but I was requested a while back to actually do a design for Cabal, and so I'm doing one here. Now, I don't necessarily know if this one is like a MK1 level design. I've always done a lot of my previous redesigns thinking about recreating the character in the vein of the style of Mortal Kombat 1. I'm not sure if I necessarily did that now, but I did want to do some kind of an updated look for Cabal's original Mortal Kombat 3 design just to see what that would look like. At least that was my thought process. When I finished, it still looked like it probably could have fit in a Mortal Kombat 1 game, but that's just my opinion. I'll let y'all be the judge of that. But without further ado, here we go. Alright, so starting off, I know I wanted the base Cabal pose to be like many other Cabal poses, and that's him holding the hook swords and almost like a cross, or like not a cross, but like a X. I just couldn't tell in the beginning whether I wanted him to hold it as an X, like holding it up to his chest or holding it down by his legs below his waist. I didn't know how I necessarily wanted him to do it. I almost had the thought of him doing like a crotch chop with the X, but I felt like that would be too much. And just from a drawing standpoint, I thought it would be too much because it was actually a lot more complicated trying to fit the actual hook swords making the cross than I originally thought, which is why I did a lot of erasing trying to do that. But once I got that down packed, I finished the pose itself. I immediately started on working on Cabal's mask. I figured the mask and the clothes attached to his, I guess, outfit are probably obviously the clothes would be important, but like the mask and his accessories are probably two of the most important parts of a Cabal design. So I wanted to get a feel as to what I would be going for doing the design out of the way early, and so I wanted to go ahead and start on his mask. Now, I originally wanted there to be extra accessories, like I wanted there to be the front piece to his mask, or at least the metal part with like the hose attachments in it, and then I was going to draw a secondary piece going around his head. But once I drew it, I don't know why I had the idea to actually almost like the human form that he had, or not human form because he is human, but like the non-burn form that he had in Mortal Kombat 11, which I don't like very much because I'm not really a fan of Cabal with the man bun. But I actually was going to try to do that here, the shaved head man bun look for Cabal with the mask on, and see what that looked like. But after I drew it, I wasn't really a fan, and I actually leaned into just having a picture of the Fiend Bray Wyatt up on my wall in my room. I looked at a picture of that and used that as a reference to draw his hair. I just didn't make it dreads, and I used that as a basis for Cabal's design, so he has one side of his head shaved. I almost continued to make that burn, but I sort of went against it. Not entirely why, outside of I'm not sure if it would actually read well doing the design. And then I just add like torn up pieces of like cloth and little bits of his clothing. That gave him a really long sort of arm wrap on one of his arms as opposed to the other. I've said this numerous times, but that weird sort of asymmetry is just the thing that I like doing when I make designs anyways. So I went along with that here. And then for his pants and boots, I solely got that idea from the original MK3 Cabal design. So after getting that locked in, I went ahead and started working on his line art. Now, as far as the actual chest piece that I gave him, I'm not really sure why I wanted him to have a chest piece sort of like Suhao and Kano, but I just figured like if they have all these heart accessories or something like that, like considering how badly burned and disfigured Cabal is, I feel like he should have way more, I don't know, augmented or metal accessories or something else going on with his design outside of just his mask. Also, as usual, if you like the video and you like the artwork that you see on the screen, I'd appreciate it if you support the channel by hitting the like button and subscribing if you haven't. Now back to the video. So that was where the chest piece came from. I almost made it a whole vest, but I thought against it and made it like a piece of his sort of vest and then having a tank top underneath that. I gave him a belt of small explosives. Don't know why, just thought it would look cool. And just as an accessory, it looks like it matches the rest of the design itself too. Now, like I said, I kept the pants like a tan color just to make it match that MK3 design a lot more. Also, as far as the coloring is concerned, I went back after I completed the picture and just colored in like burns on his arms. So the finished product, his arms is going to look slightly different only because I went back and colored that. It's not going to show up in the actual video, but I feel like the burns would read a lot more on his actual arms itself than it would with his face, with it all being covered up and stuff in the first place. And while I did leave a little opening in his face in the mask, it's still such a small area. I didn't want to start going too much to where the design started reading poorly. But it was shading this picture that I started to really fall in love with it, especially all the metal pieces and like the chest plate and the mask itself. Like I wasn't too sold on the design until, as usual, I started doing the shading and highlights. Just the metallic nature of his design started to look really cool to me once I finished actually doing the highlights on it and then knocking out the shading beforehand. Like it really started to pop after that. I didn't want to go because I know sometimes I could go overboard with doing the specular highlights on the characters that I draw to make it almost look like they're glowing or they're standing in front of a bright light. So I didn't want to do that too crazy here. So I tried to control myself and it's not as bad as it normally is. I specifically left the highlights and stuff like his hair and his arms just so he didn't look completely like blown out or anything. But I felt like the final piece of this design really looked unique and really looked simultaneously like Cabal. Like I don't know why it looks, the finished product of this to me looks familiar yet new at the exact same time. And I think it's just because he looks so different, but there's so much of the original Cabal design that's in here. I don't know, I like the design I came up with a lot better than the Revenant MK11 design that was in the previous game, which I've stated before, I hate the vast majority of the Revenant design, so seeing a regular or as regular as humanly possible looking Cabal is how I prefer him, and it's always a plus for me. But in any event, that was the full design. That is Cabal. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the design and how you feel about it as a redesign of Cabal in comparison to a lot of his previous ones, whether or not it fits or is better or worse. And you all have a good one, and I'm out.
Friendship, Cabal wins. Flawless victory.